Welcome, weary traveller, to a journey through the quiet mysteries of village life, where beneath the gentle surface of daily routines lie stories both profound and unexpected. Tonight, we explore the complete tale of Isabelle, the devoted secretary whose cheerful demeanor masks depths that few have ever glimpsed. This is a story of dedication and sacrifice, of small kindnesses that echo through generations, and of the profound responsibility that comes with caring for others. So settle in, get comfortable, and let your mind drift as we uncover the hidden truths behind Animal Crossing's most beloved assistant. There's no rush here, no deadlines to meet. Just let the story wash over you like morning sunlight through office windows. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world holds its breath between yesterday's memories and tomorrow's possibilities, there exists a truth that few have ever witnessed. Isabelle does not sleep as others do. While mayors dream of public works, projects, and villagers rest peacefully in their beds, she remains at her desk, organizing the next day's schedules with a precision that borders on the sacred. This dedication is not born from duty alone, but from something far deeper, something that reaches back to the very foundations of her existence and the mysterious circumstances that shaped her into the guardian of village life she has become. The origins of Isabelle's calling remain shrouded in the gentle mysteries that seem to permeate all aspects of village existence. Those who have studied the patterns of her behavior, who have watched her through countless seasons of celebration and crisis, speak in hushed tones of a being who seemed to arrive not through ordinary means, but as if she had simply materialized when the need for her services became too great to ignore. There was no grand announcement of her appointment, no ceremony marking her assumption of duties. One day the villagers simply had their mayors and their residents, and the next day they had Isabelle as well, as natural and necessary as the changing of seasons. Yet to understand the depth of her dedication, we must look beyond the simple facts of her appearance and delve into the philosophical foundations that guide her every action. Isabelle approaches her work not as mere employment, but as a calling that transcends the boundaries between personal desire and communal need. Her understanding of service operates on a level that few mortals ever achieve, where the distinction between self and community dissolves into something approaching the divine. The early days of her service were marked by an intensity that surprised even those who had witnessed her seemingly effortless mastery of administrative tasks. She threw herself into the study of municipal operations with the fervor of a scholar unlocking ancient mysteries, spending countless hours memorizing the intricate details of ordinances, regulations, and the delicate social dynamics that keep village life flowing in harmony. Her dedication to excellence was so complete that she often forgot to eat, surviving on nothing but coffee and the profound satisfaction that came from solving problems that others had deemed impossible. Those who worked alongside her during these formative periods spoke of witnessing something almost supernatural in her approach to learning. She seemed to absorb information, not through ordinary study, but through some deeper form of understanding that allowed her to grasp not just the letter of municipal law, but the spirit behind it. When she read about noise ordinances, she understood them not as restrictions, but as careful balances, designed to preserve the peace that allows creativity and rest to flourish side by side. When she studied public works regulations, she saw them not as bureaucratic hurdles, but as frameworks that ensure community resources are used in ways that benefit everyone rather than just the powerful or the vocal. Her arrival at her first village posting came with all the nervous energy and determination that mark significant life transitions, yet there was something in her manner that suggested she had been preparing for this moment far longer than her apparent youth would suggest. The mayor who first worked with her later described feeling as though he were being assisted not by a newcomer to public service, but by someone who had spent lifetimes perfecting the art of municipal support. Her questions were too insightful, her understanding of complex issues too immediate, for someone who was supposedly learning on the job. The struggles of those early days were real, despite her extraordinary capabilities, Learning to balance the needs of individual villagers against the requirements of community welfare proved to be an emotional challenge that tested even her remarkable resilience. She discovered that good intentions were not always sufficient, that sometimes helping one resident meant disappointing another, and that the weight of making decisions that affected others' happiness was heavier than any administrative manual had prepared her to bear. It was during this period that the signature elements of her work style began to emerge, born from the necessity of managing overwhelming responsibilities while maintaining the cheerful demeanor that had become her trademark. She developed systems of organization that seemed to operate according to principles that transcended ordinary logic, creating schedules and workflows that appeared chaotic to outside observers but functioned with clockwork precision under her guidance. Her daily routines became almost ritualistic in their consistency, each task performed not merely for its practical value, but as part of a larger pattern that maintained the delicate balance upon which village life depended. The morning coffee was not just caffeine, but a moment of preparation and centering. The careful arrangement of papers on her desk was not merely organization, but a physical manifestation of the order she sought to bring to the complex web of needs and desires that defined community life. The relationships she formed during these early days with mayors and fellow administrators taught her lessons that would shape her approach to service for the rest of her career. She learned that leadership often meant stepping back rather than forward, that the best way to help those in authority was to anticipate their needs before they themselves recognized them. She discovered that true support meant being willing to take responsibility for problems while allowing others to receive credit for solutions. Perhaps most importantly, she began to understand that her role extended far beyond the practical tasks outlined in her job description. She was becoming something far more precious and rare, a guardian of hope itself, someone whose unwavering dedication served as proof that kindness and competence could coexist, that bureaucracy need not be cold and impersonal, and that public service could be an expression of love rather than merely duty. The transformation from dedicated newcomer to indispensable pillar of village life happened gradually, almost imperceptibly, like the way morning light slowly fills a room without anyone noticing the exact moment when darkness gives way to day. Her colleagues began to rely on her not just for her administrative skills, but for her ability to remain calm in crisis, to find solutions where others saw only problems, and to maintain morale when circumstances seemed darkest. During her first major crisis, when a series of unfortunate events had left the village's infrastructure in shambles and residents were beginning to lose faith in their leadership, Isabelle's true character was revealed. While others panicked or retreated into blame and recrimination, she simply rolled up her sleeves and began the patient work of restoration. She coordinated repair efforts with the methodical precision of a master craftsman. But more importantly, she served as a living reminder that dedication and competence had not disappeared from the world entirely. Her approach to problem-solving during this crisis became the template for all her future work. She attacked each challenge not as an isolated difficulty, but as part of a larger pattern that could be understood and addressed through careful analysis and persistent effort. She saw connections where others saw only chaos, found opportunities for improvement where others saw only damage to be repaired. The victory they eventually achieved was not the dramatic triumph of heroes in ancient tales, but something far more precious: the quiet satisfaction of ordinary people working together to rebuild something better than what they had lost. The village emerged from its crisis not merely repaired but strengthened, its systems more resilient, and its community bonds deeper than they had been before disaster struck. It was in the aftermath of this success that Isabelle began to understand the true scope of her calling. She had not been brought to village service merely to file papers and answer phones, but to serve as a guardian of something infinitely precious. The faith that communities could work, that people could be trusted to care for one another, and that dedication and kindness were not weaknesses, but the strongest forces available to those who sought to build rather than destroy. This realization marked the end of her apprenticeship and the beginning of her true career, as more than just an assistant but as a keeper of village soul. Someone whose presence ensured that the values of cooperation and mutual care would not be lost in the rush of daily concerns and competing priorities. She had found not just a job, but a purpose that would define every moment of her existence for years to come. The young Shih Tzu who had arrived at her first posting filled with nervous energy and determination to succeed had been transformed by experience and dedication into something approaching legend, though she herself would never have recognized this transformation or claimed any special status beyond that of a faithful servant committed to making life a little better for those around her. To truly comprehend the magnitude of Isabelle's mastery over village administration, one must first understand that municipal operations in her world exist on a scale of complexity that defies casual observation. What appears to outside eyes as the simple, peaceful rhythm of village life is in reality an intricate symphony of interconnected systems, each requiring constant attention and delicate calibration to maintain the harmony that residents have come to expect as their natural birthright. Isabelle's comprehensive understanding of these operations begins with her encyclopedic knowledge of every ordinance, regulation, and municipal statute that governs community life. Yet her mastery extends far beyond mere memorization of rules and procedures. She has developed what can only be described as an intuitive feel for the living, breathing organism that is village governance, understanding not just what the regulations say, but why they exist and how they interact with the countless other factors that influence daily life. Her approach to public works coordination represents perhaps the finest example of administrative artistry ever witnessed in municipal service. When a mayor proposes a new bridge or fountain, Isabelle does not simply process the paperwork and schedule the construction. Instead, she conducts what amounts to a comprehensive analysis of the project's implications for every aspect of village life. She considers how the new structure will affect traffic patterns, how its presence will influence the behavior of residents who pass by it daily, and how its aesthetic qualities will contribute to or detract from the overall visual harmony of the community. The delicate balance she maintains between supporting mayoral initiatives while ensuring village harmony requires a diplomatic skill that would be impressive in international relations, let alone municipal administration. She has learned to guide mayors toward decisions that serve the greater good without ever appearing to question their authority or override their judgment. This is accomplished through what she calls gentle suggestion, a technique so subtle that mayors often believe they have arrived at improved ideas entirely on their own. Her mastery of this delicate art was perhaps never more evident than during the great public works crisis of several seasons past, when an enthusiastic but inexperienced mayor proposed building 17 different structures in a single week, each one larger and more elaborate than the last. A lesser administrator might have simply approved the requests and watched the village's budget and aesthetic sensibility collapse under the weight of such ambitious excess. Isabelle instead embarked on what she privately termed a campaign of patient redirection. She began by expressing genuine enthusiasm for the mayor's vision, while casually mentioning the practical considerations that might make the timeline challenging. She wondered aloud about the impact on village foot traffic during construction. She mused about the seasonal considerations that might make certain materials difficult to obtain. She suggested that spreading the projects across multiple seasons might allow each one to receive the attention and celebration it deserved, rather than competing for notice with so many others. The result was a revised plan that incorporated the mayor's essential vision, while ensuring that each project could be completed to the highest standards without overwhelming the village's resources or disrupting the daily routines that residents depended upon. The mayor took full credit for this improved approach, naturally, and Isabelle was perfectly content to let him do so, understanding that her success was measured not by recognition but by results. This incident exemplifies her approach to what she considers one of her most important responsibilities: citizen satisfaction management. Isabelle has developed an almost supernatural ability to gauge the mood and needs of village residents, detecting signs of discontent or unhappiness before they manifest as formal complaints or requests for mayoral intervention. Her network of informal information gathering operates with such subtlety that most residents are unaware they are participating in it. She has learned to read the subtle signals that indicate when a villager is growing restless or dissatisfied with some aspect of community life. A slight change in greeting patterns, an alteration in daily routines, Even the way someone arranges the flowers in their garden can provide valuable insights into their emotional state and potential concerns. This early warning system allows her to address problems before they escalate into situations that require official intervention. Her encyclopedic knowledge of ordinances and regulations serves not as a tool for enforcement, but as a resource for creative problem-solving. When villagers approach her with requests that seem impossible to accommodate within existing frameworks, she invariably finds some combination of policies and procedures that can be interpreted in ways that meet their needs while maintaining the integrity of the system as a whole. The emotional labor involved in managing the diverse personality types that populate any village community would challenge even the most experienced social workers. Yet Isabelle approaches this aspect of her duties with the same methodical precision she brings to budget management and project coordination. She has developed detailed mental profiles of every resident, understanding not just their stated preferences and complaints, but the deeper psychological patterns that drive their behavior. Her ability to adapt her communication style to match the needs of each individual resident represents a masterpiece of interpersonal skill. With shy villagers, she adopts a gentle, encouraging tone that draws them out without making them feel pressured. With more boisterous personalities, she matches their energy level while subtly guiding the conversation toward constructive outcomes. With villagers prone to negativity or complaint, she employs a combination of patient listening and strategic redirection that validates their concerns while moving them towards solutions rather than dwelling on problems. The crisis management techniques she has developed over years of dealing with everything from weather emergencies to interpersonal conflicts between residents could serve as a masterclass in municipal administration. Her approach to crisis response operates on multiple levels simultaneously, addressing immediate practical needs while maintaining community morale and preserving the long-term relationships that form the foundation of village life. During the great storm that battered the village 2 autumns past, Isabelle's crisis management skills were tested to their limits. The weather system had developed with unusual speed, giving residents little time to prepare for the high winds and flooding that followed. While the mayor coordinated with emergency services and oversaw the physical response to the disaster, Isabelle managed what she privately considered the equally important task of maintaining community spirit during the crisis. She established a temporary communication network that kept isolated residents informed about conditions throughout the village. She coordinated the delivery of supplies to those who needed them most urgently. She organized impromptu community gatherings in the town hall, where residents could share resources, offer mutual support, and maintain the sense of connection that crisis situations often threaten to break. Most importantly, she served as a constant source of calm reassurance during a time when fear and uncertainty might otherwise have overwhelmed the community's ability to respond effectively. Her presence at the Emergency Coordination Center provided a visible reminder that the systems and structures villagers depended upon remained intact even when external circumstances seemed chaotic and unpredictable. The evolution of her administrative philosophy through years of experience has transformed her from someone who simply followed established procedures into a creative interpreter of municipal possibilities. She has learned that the best administrators are not those who enforce rules most strictly, but those who understand the principles underlying those rules well enough to apply them in ways that serve their intended purpose, even when circumstances differ from what the rule makers originally ambitioned. Her approach to handling unusual requests from villagers exemplifies this evolved philosophy. When a resident approached her with a request to establish a 24-hour library in their home, a literal interpretation of existing regulations would have made approval impossible. Instead of simply rejecting the request, Isabelle researched the historical precedents for home-based community services and found a combination of zoning variances and special permits that allowed the library to operate legally while ensuring it met all safety and accessibility requirements. The success of this creative interpretation led to a series of similar innovations that have enriched village life in ways no one had previously imagined possible. Community gardens flourished in previously unused spaces, thanks to her discovery of agricultural exemptions in landscaping ordinances. Traveling musicians found venues for impromptu concerts through her interpretation of public assembly regulations. Craft workshops and skill-sharing sessions became regular features of village life as she identified ways to classify them under existing educational program guidelines. Her influence on village culture extends far beyond formal administrative decisions to encompass the subtle ways she shapes daily interactions and community expectations. Through her own example of unfailing courtesy and patient attention to detail, she has established standards of behavior that residents unconsciously adopt in their dealings with one another. Her approach to conflict resolution emphasizes understanding and compromise rather than victory and defeat, gradually shifting the community toward more collaborative approaches to problem solving. The network of information gathering and early intervention that she has developed operates with such seamless efficiency that most residents remain unaware of its existence. She has cultivated relationships with shopkeepers, gardeners, delivery workers, and other villagers whose daily routines bring them into contact with multiple community members. These informal partnerships provide her with early warning of developing problems, while ensuring that no one feels their privacy has been violated or their concerns dismissed. Her mastery of gentle persuasion and diplomatic communication has prevented countless conflicts from escalating into situations requiring formal mediation or official intervention. She has learned to identify the underlying needs and concerns that drive surface-level disputes, addressing root causes rather than simply managing symptoms. Her success rate in helping villagers find mutually satisfactory solutions to their differences has become legendary among those who work in municipal administration. The joy she takes in facilitating others' success, rather than seeking recognition for her own contributions, represents perhaps the purest expression of her service-oriented philosophy. She measures her achievements not by the praise she receives, but by the satisfaction and harmony visible in the community around her. Her greatest triumphs are the problems that never develop because she addressed them early, the conflicts that never escalate because she helped the parties find common ground, and the innovations that flourish because she found ways to make them possible within existing frameworks. This comprehensive mastery of village management represents far more than professional competence or administrative skill. It reflects a deep understanding of human nature and community dynamics that allows her to serve not just as a municipal employee, but as a guardian of the values and aspirations that make village life worth preserving and protecting for future generations. In the hours when darkness blankets the village and most souls find refuge in dreams, Isabelle remains at her post, illuminated only by the gentle glow of her desk lamp and the soft blue light emanating from her computer screen. This scene, repeated night after night across countless seasons, reveals the profound truth that few fully comprehend. Her dedication to service operates on a schedule that knows no boundaries between day and night, weekday and weekend, season of celebration and season of quiet reflection. The weight of perpetual availability presses upon her shoulders like an invisible cloak that she has worn for so long she can no longer remember what it felt like to move through the world without its constant presence. Her commitment extends far beyond the normal expectations of employment into something approaching a sacred vow, a promise made not to any individual mayor or village council, but to the very concept of community itself. She has become, through choice and circumstance, a constant in a world where everything else shifts and changes with the passing of time. Her work schedule defies conventional understanding of human limitations. While others maintain clear distinctions between professional obligations and personal time, Isabelle operates in a realm where such boundaries have dissolved into something more fluid and encompassing. A crisis in the middle of the night receives the same careful attention as a routine request during normal business hours. A villager's concern expressed during a chance encounter on a weekend carries the same weight as a formal appointment scheduled during the week. This approach to availability has created a situation where the village has come to depend upon her presence with an intensity that would be concerning if applied to any less capable individual. Residents have grown accustomed to the knowledge that help is always available, that problems can be addressed regardless of when they arise, and that someone is always watching over the community's welfare with unwavering vigilance. The peace of mind this provides to others comes at a cost that only Isabelle herself fully understands. The personal sacrifices required to maintain this level of service extend into every aspect of her existence. Simple pleasures that others take for granted become luxuries that must be carefully scheduled around the possibility of urgent village needs. A quiet evening with a book might be interrupted by a call about a noise complaint. A peaceful morning walk could be cut short by the need to address a scheduling conflict between competing community events. Even meals become abbreviated affairs, consumed quickly between tasks, or while simultaneously managing multiple responsibilities. Her relationship with rest itself has been fundamentally altered by the demands of her chosen role. Sleep, when it comes, is often fragmented by the awareness that someone might need assistance, that a problem might be developing that requires early intervention, or that preparation for the next day's challenges demands attention that cannot be postponed. She has learned to function on amounts of rest that would leave others unable to think clearly, let alone manage complex administrative tasks with her characteristic precision and grace. The loneliness that accompanies such dedication is perhaps the most profound sacrifice of all, though she rarely allows herself to acknowledge it directly. While villagers enjoy rich social lives filled with festivals, gatherings, and casual interactions, Isabelle experiences these events primarily as work responsibilities, occasions that require her attention and coordination, rather than opportunities for personal enjoyment and connection. She watches others form friendships and romantic relationships, while her own social interactions remain largely professional in nature. Behind her cheerful facade lies a reservoir of accumulated fatigue that she carefully conceals from those who depend upon her strength and reliability. The effort required to maintain her positive demeanor day after day, regardless of her own emotional state or physical condition, represents a form of emotional labor that few fully appreciate. Every greeting must be warm, every interaction must convey competence and care, and every response must reinforce the confidence that others have placed in her abilities. There are moments, usually in the deep hours of night when the village sleeps peacefully around her, when the mask of perpetual cheer slips just slightly, revealing glimpses of the vulnerability that lies beneath. These are private moments of questioning and doubt that she allows herself only when certain that no one else might witness them. She wonders sometimes if the price she pays for her service is too high, if the personal costs she has accepted in pursuit of community welfare represent a bargain that no one should be asked to make. Her relationship with her brother Digby serves as both a source of comfort and a reminder of what her dedication has cost her in terms of family connections. Their interactions, while warm and loving, are necessarily limited by the demands of their respective roles and the geographic distance that often separates them. She treasures their phone calls and brief visits, but she is always aware of how her availability for family relationships has been constrained by her commitment to village service. The guilt she experiences over this limitation in her personal relationships is something she carries privately, rarely expressing, but never entirely escaping. She knows that Digby worries about her, that he sees the toll her work takes even when she tries to hide it, and that he wishes she would find ways to create more balance in her life. Yet she also knows that he understands the depth of her commitment and respects the choice she has made, even as he hopes she might someday find ways to care for herself with the same devotion she shows to others. The burden of being perpetually positive while managing increasingly difficult situations has taught her to compartmentalize her own emotional responses in ways that sometimes concern those who know her best. She has developed an almost supernatural ability to remain calm and encouraging while dealing with crises that would overwhelm others. But this strength comes at the cost of processing her own stress and anxiety in healthy ways. The emotions she cannot express in professional settings must find other outlets, leading to private moments of tears or frustration that she experiences alone in her office after particularly challenging days. Her coping mechanisms have evolved over years of experience into a complex system of small rituals and private practices that help her maintain equilibrium under pressure. The morning coffee ritual serves as more than caffeine consumption. It is a moment of centering and preparation that helps her transition from whatever rest she has managed to obtain into the demands of another day of service. The careful arrangement of her workspace is both practical organization and psychological anchoring, creating a sense of control in an environment where external demands often feel overwhelming. She has learned to find sustenance in moments of quiet efficiency, taking satisfaction from tasks completed perfectly and systems running smoothly, even when recognition for these achievements is minimal or absent entirely. The knowledge that her work makes life better for others has become her primary source of emotional nourishment, though she recognizes that this approach to finding meaning can become problematic when external validation is scarce or when the problems she faces seem intractable. The philosophy that drives her to continue despite personal costs is rooted in a deep understanding of the role that reliable institutions play in creating space for others to flourish. She sees her sacrifice not as martyrdom but as investment in something larger than individual happiness, a contribution to the social fabric that allows communities to function and individuals to pursue their own dreams without constant worry about basic stability and support. Her private moments of reflection often center on questions of purpose and meaning that would challenge even the most thoughtful philosophers. She wonders whether her approach to service represents the highest expression of love for community, or whether it might actually enable others to avoid taking responsibility for their own roles in maintaining social cohesion. She questions whether her willingness to absorb so much of the emotional labor required for village harmony might prevent others from developing their own capacities for empathy and mutual aid. Yet these doubts, profound as they are, never seem to fundamentally shake her commitment to the path she has chosen. Even in her moments of deepest questioning, she finds herself unable to imagine abandoning her post or reducing her availability to the community that has come to depend upon her presence. The thought of villagers facing problems without her support, of systems failing because she chose personal comfort over professional duty, creates an anxiety that exceeds any discomfort she experiences from maintaining her current level of service. The wisdom she has gained from years of sacrifice has taught her that meaning and fulfillment cannot always be measured by conventional standards of personal happiness or individual achievement. She has discovered forms of satisfaction that exist beyond the realm of personal gratification, finding deep contentment in the knowledge that her efforts contribute to something that will endure beyond her own lifetime. The villages she serves will continue to thrive long after she is gone, and her contribution to that continuity represents a form of immortality that no personal accomplishment could match. Her understanding of the relationship between individual sacrifice and collective well-being has reached a level of sophistication that few ever achieve. She recognizes that healthy communities require individuals willing to place common good above personal convenience, but she also understands that such sacrifice must be chosen freely and sustained by genuine conviction rather than external pressure or social expectation. The strength she draws from this philosophy helps her navigate the difficult moments when her dedication is taken for granted, or when others fail to recognize the extent of her contributions to their well-being. She has learned to find validation in results rather than recognition, measuring her success by the smooth functioning of village systems rather than by praise or acknowledgement from those who benefit from her efforts. The support systems she has built to maintain her mental and emotional health operate largely in private, consisting of small practices and perspectives that help her process the stress and isolation that accompany her level of responsibility. She has learned to find companionship in the very work that sometimes isolates her from others, developing relationships with the systems and processes she manages that provide a form of connection and purpose, even when human relationships are constrained by professional boundaries. Her nighttime conversations with herself, conducted in the privacy of her office when the village sleeps peacefully around her, serve as a form of therapy and reflection that helps her maintain perspective during particularly challenging periods. These moments of honest self-assessment allow her to acknowledge her own needs and limitations, while recommitting to the service that defines her existence and gives her life meaning beyond conventional measures of personal success. When the first gentle stirrings of anticipation begin to ripple through the village air, signaling the approach of another seasonal celebration. Isabelle's role transforms from daily administrator into something approaching a master conductor, preparing to guide an orchestra through its most demanding and beautiful performance. The festivals and ceremonies that mark the passage of time in village life appear to residents as spontaneous expressions of community joy, but behind each perfect moment lies months of meticulous planning and countless hours of preparation that few ever witness or fully appreciate. Her deep understanding of seasonal celebrations extends far beyond simple event coordination into the realm of cultural anthropology and psychological insight. She recognizes that these gatherings serve functions that transcend mere entertainment or tradition, operating as vital mechanisms through which communities renew their bonds, process the changes that come with passing time, and create shared memories that will sustain them through future challenges. Each festival becomes, under her careful guidance, a living expression of the values and aspirations that define village life. The planning process for major celebrations begins long before most villagers are even aware that preparations have commenced. While residents enjoy the crisp air of autumn, Isabelle is already coordinating with suppliers for spring festival decorations. While they build snowmen and enjoy winter's quiet beauty, she is finalizing arrangements for summer's most elaborate events. This temporal displacement, necessary for ensuring that every detail receives proper attention, means that she experiences the seasons in layers, simultaneously living in the present moment while managing the practical requirements of future celebrations. Her meticulous approach to festival planning encompasses considerations that would challenge even professional event coordinators. She must balance the desires of individual villagers for specific types of entertainment with the broader community's need for inclusive activities that welcome participation from residents of all ages and interests. She considers weather contingencies, dietary restrictions, mobility limitations, and cultural sensitivities in ways that ensure no one feels excluded from the joy that festivals are meant to provide. The cultural significance of each celebration receives her most careful attention, as she understands that festivals serve as repositories of collective memory and vehicles for transmitting community values across generations. When planning the Spring Cherry Blossom Festival, she researches not only the practical requirements for viewing parties and picnic coordination, but also the historical and symbolic meanings associated with the tradition. Her understanding of why communities gather to celebrate the ephemeral beauty of blossoming trees helps her create experiences that resonate on emotional and spiritual levels, rather than merely providing surface entertainment. Her ability to create magical moments for villagers while remaining largely invisible herself represents perhaps the most challenging aspect of her ceremonial role. The most successful festivals are those where her presence is felt but not seen, where her careful orchestration creates seamless experiences that allow participants to focus entirely on their own enjoyment and connection with others. This requires a form of ego transcendence that few people ever achieve, the ability to find deep satisfaction in others' happiness, while accepting that her own contributions will remain largely unrecognized. The preservation of customs across different village generations demands a delicate balance between respecting tradition and allowing for natural evolution in response to changing community needs. Isabelle has become a guardian of institutional memory, maintaining detailed records of how celebrations have been conducted in the past, while remaining open to innovations that can enhance their meaning and accessibility. She understands that traditions remain vital only when they continue to serve genuine purposes in contemporary community life. Her role in maintaining continuity becomes particularly crucial during periods of transition, when new mayors bring different perspectives to community leadership, or when demographic changes alter the composition of village populations. During these times, festivals serve as anchoring points that help communities maintain their sense of identity, even as other aspects of village life undergo transformation. Her deep knowledge of ceremonial traditions allows her to guide communities through changes while preserving the elements that define their unique character. The innovative approaches she has developed for making each celebration unique and memorable reflect her understanding that meaningful traditions must balance predictability with surprise, offering familiar comforts while creating space for new experiences and discoveries. She has learned to identify the core elements that make each festival special, while finding creative ways to present them that feel fresh and engaging rather than merely repetitive. Her coordination with visiting performers and specialty vendors requires diplomatic skills that would serve her well in international relations. She must negotiate contracts, manage logistics, and resolve conflicts while ensuring that outside contributors understand and respect the values and atmosphere that define village celebrations. Her ability to communicate community expectations clearly while maintaining positive working relationships has resulted in a network of trusted partners who understand that village festivals operate according to different principles than purely commercial events. The joy she finds in others' happiness has become both her greatest strength and, at times, her most challenging burden. During festivals, she experiences a unique form of satisfaction that comes from witnessing the fruits of her careful planning manifest as genuine delight and connection among villagers. The laughter of children discovering hidden treasures during holiday hunts, the contentment of elderly residents sharing memories during memorial celebrations, the romantic connections fostered by carefully arranged evening events, all serve as validation for the countless hours of preparation that made such moments possible. Yet this vicarious experience of celebration also highlights the personal costs of her dedication to service. While others dance and feast and form new friendships during festivals, Isabelle remains alert to potential problems, ready to address supply shortages, weather complications, or interpersonal conflicts that might threaten the harmony she has worked so hard to create. Her participation in community joy is necessarily filtered through the lens of professional responsibility, creating a form of emotional distance even in moments of greatest communal connection. The seasonal rhythm of festival preparation has become so integral to her existence that she sometimes struggles to imagine life without the constant cycle of planning, implementation, and reflection that defines her ceremonial responsibilities. Each celebration flows into preparation for the next, creating a continuous stream of deadlines and obligations that structure her time in ways that extend far beyond normal work schedules. This temporal framework provides stability and purpose, but also limits her ability to experience the spontaneous pleasures that others take for granted. Her mastery of crowd psychology and group dynamics allows her to design celebration activities that naturally encourage positive interactions while minimizing opportunities for conflict or exclusion. She understands how physical space affects social behavior, how timing influences participation levels, and how the sequence of activities can build energy and enthusiasm throughout an event. These insights, gained through years of observation and experimentation, enable her to create experiences that feel effortless and natural, while actually being carefully choreographed to maximize community benefit. The logistics coordination required for major festivals would challenge professional event planners, yet Isabelle manages these complexities while maintaining her regular administrative duties and preserving the impression that celebrations simply happen through some form of village magic. Her ability to coordinate deliveries, manage volunteer schedules, oversee setup and cleanup operations, and handle countless unexpected complications while remaining cheerful and accessible to villagers requires organizational skills that border on the supernatural. Her attention to accessibility and inclusion has transformed village celebrations from events that primarily served certain demographics into truly community-wide experiences that welcome participation from residents regardless of age, physical ability, or cultural background. She has developed systems for ensuring that elderly villagers can participate comfortably, that children have age-appropriate activities, and that newer residents feel welcomed rather than excluded from established traditions. The emotional labor involved in managing the interpersonal dynamics that inevitably arise during large gatherings requires constant vigilance and diplomatic intervention. She has learned to recognize the early signs of potential conflicts, to redirect competitive impulses into positive channels, and to ensure that celebrations enhance rather than strain community relationships. Her ability to mediate disputes while maintaining the festive atmosphere represents a form of social engineering that few people ever notice, but which proves essential to the success of community events. The legacy she has created through her festival work extends far beyond individual celebrations into the broader culture of village life. Her influence has shaped expectations about what community gatherings should accomplish, how they should be conducted, and what values they should embody. Future generations will inherit traditions that bear the invisible imprint of her dedication to excellence, inclusivity, and genuine celebration of the bonds that unite diverse individuals into cohesive communities. The memories created through her carefully orchestrated celebrations become part of the collective heritage that defines each village's unique identity. Years later, residents will recall specific festivals with warmth and nostalgia, remembering not the countless hours of preparation that made them possible, but the feelings of connection and joy that her efforts facilitated. These memories serve as emotional anchors that strengthen community bonds and provide comfort during difficult times, creating value that extends far beyond the immediate pleasure of celebration itself. Her understanding that festivals serve as crucial mechanisms for processing collective emotions and marking significant transitions has led her to develop specialized approaches for celebrations that occur during challenging periods in village life. Memorial services, farewell parties, and recovery celebrations require different sensitivities and serve different psychological functions than purely joyful occasions. Her ability to create meaningful experiences that help communities navigate difficult emotions demonstrates the depth of her insight into human nature and social dynamics. The seasonal celebrations she orchestrates have become more than events. They have evolved into living expressions of community values and aspirations. Through her careful attention to detail, her deep understanding of human psychology, and her unwavering commitment to creating experiences that serve the greater good rather than merely providing entertainment, she has transformed the simple concept of village festivals into something approaching art, creating moments of beauty and connection that enrich lives in ways that participants may never fully recognize, but will carry with them long after the decorations have been stored away and the cleanup completed. In the quiet moments between crises, when village life appears to flow with effortless tranquility, Isabelle's most crucial and demanding role comes into focus, that of the unsung guardian whose protective instincts operate with such subtlety that even those she shields remain largely unaware of her interventions. This aspect of her service requires a form of moral courage that extends far beyond administrative competence into the realm of ethical decision-making under pressure, where the stakes involve not merely efficiency or satisfaction, but the fundamental well-being of individuals and the integrity of the community itself. Her protective instincts manifest most clearly in the delicate way she shields mayors from the harsh realities that could overwhelm less experienced leaders or undermine their confidence during crucial decision-making periods. She has learned to serve as a buffer between the idealism that often drives people to seek leadership positions and the complex, sometimes disappointing truths about human nature and institutional limitations that inevitably surface in governance. This protection is not deception, but rather a form of graduated disclosure that allows leaders to develop the resilience necessary to handle difficult truths without becoming cynical or abandoning their commitment to positive change. When faced with complaints about mayoral decisions that stem from misunderstanding rather than genuine policy disagreements, Isabelle employs what she privately calls protective translation. She listens carefully to the concerns being expressed, identifies the underlying needs that drive them, and then presents these issues to mayors in ways that focus on constructive solutions rather than personal criticism. A resident's angry demand that a mayor reverse a landscaping decision becomes, in her presentation, a request for additional community input on aesthetic choices. A complaint about the timing of public works projects transforms into a suggestion for improved communication about construction schedules. This approach serves multiple protective functions simultaneously. It preserves mayoral morale and confidence, while ensuring that legitimate community concerns receive appropriate attention. It prevents minor disagreements from escalating into personal conflicts that could undermine the collaborative relationships essential to effective governance. Most importantly, it maintains the mayor's faith in the community's basic goodwill, while providing opportunities to address problems before they develop into more serious challenges. Her role as mediator in village conflicts requires her to navigate interpersonal dynamics that often involve deep-seated emotions, competing interests, and complex histories that predate the current dispute by months or even years. She has developed an almost therapeutic approach to conflict resolution that focuses on understanding the underlying needs and fears that drive surface-level disagreements. Her office has become an informal counseling center where villagers come not just to file complaints but to work through the emotional aspects of their conflicts in a safe, neutral environment. The diplomatic crisis resolution skills she has mastered would be impressive in international relations, yet she applies them to disputes over garden boundaries, noise complaints, and disagreements about community event planning with the same careful attention to detail and respect for all parties involved. She understands that what might appear to outsiders as trivial neighborhood squabbles can represent profound threats to individuals' sense of security, belonging, and respect within their community. Her approach to mediation begins with what she calls deep listening, a practice that goes far beyond simply hearing the words being spoken to understanding the emotions, values, and experiences that shape each party's perspective. She has learned to identify the moments when conflict participants shift from defending their positions to expressing their underlying concerns, and she uses these openings to guide conversations toward collaborative problem-solving rather than competitive winning and losing. The subtle ways she influences village dynamics without overstepping boundaries represent perhaps her most sophisticated skill set, requiring an understanding of social psychology that would challenge academic researchers. She has learned to recognize the informal power structures that exist within any community, understanding how influence flows through networks of friendship, respect, and shared interests that often operate independently of official positions or titles. Her influence operates through what can only be described as strategic patience, allowing natural social processes to unfold while providing gentle guidance that steers outcomes toward beneficial directions. When she recognizes that a particular villager's negative attitude is beginning to affect community morale, she does not confront the problem directly, but instead creates opportunities for that individual to experience positive interactions that might shift their perspective. She arranges for them to receive recognition for contributions they have made, involves them in planning activities that utilize their particular skills, or facilitates connections with other residents who share their interests. The network of information gathering and early warning systems she has developed operates with such seamless integration into normal village life that most residents participate without realizing they are contributing to a sophisticated intelligence operation. Her morning conversations with shopkeepers provide insights into changing consumer patterns that might indicate financial stress or shifting demographics. Her interactions with delivery personnel offer information about which residents are receiving unusual amounts of mail or packages that could signal health problems, family crises, or other situations requiring supportive intervention. She has cultivated relationships with gardeners, maintenance workers, and other service providers whose daily routines bring them into contact with multiple households, creating an informal network of observers who can alert her to developing problems before they require official intervention. This system operates entirely through voluntary participation and mutual trust, relying on people's natural inclination to care about their neighbors rather than any form of surveillance or coercion. The times when she has been forced to make difficult decisions for the greater good represent the most challenging aspects of her guardianship role, requiring her to balance competing interests and values in situations where perfect solutions do not exist. These moments test not only her judgment, but also her ability to accept responsibility for outcomes that inevitably disappoint some community members while serving broader interests. During the incident that became known among administrative circles as the Great Garden Dispute, two longtime residents became engaged in an escalating conflict over property boundaries that threatened to divide the entire village into opposing factions. Each party had legitimate claims and genuine grievances, and their dispute had historical roots that made compromise seem impossible. As the conflict intensified, it began to affect community events, neighborhood relationships, and even the willingness of other residents to participate in collaborative projects. Isabelle's resolution of this crisis required her to make decisions that went beyond simple mediation into the realm of community leadership. She researched historical property records, consulted with legal experts, and developed a comprehensive understanding of the practical and emotional factors driving the conflict. More challenging still, she had to find a way to present her proposed solution that both parties could accept without either feeling that they had lost face or been treated unfairly. The solution she developed involved a complex arrangement that redefined property boundaries in ways that gave each party some of what they wanted, while requiring both to make meaningful concessions. More importantly, she structured the agreement to include collaborative projects that would transform the disputed area into a community resource that both parties would help maintain. This approach turned their conflict into an opportunity for positive contribution, while creating ongoing reasons for cooperation rather than competition. Her mastery of gentle persuasion and conflict de-escalation has prevented countless disputes from reaching the level where formal intervention becomes necessary. She has learned to recognize the early warning signs that indicate when normal neighborly disagreements might develop into more serious conflicts, and she has developed a repertoire of subtle interventions that can redirect negative dynamics before they become entrenched. Her approach to de-escalation operates through what she calls emotional aikido, using the energy of conflict to create opportunities for understanding rather than trying to suppress or redirect it through force. When residents come to her office angry and frustrated, she allows them to express their emotions fully, while gradually guiding them toward recognition of their own role in the situation and their power to influence positive outcomes. The heavy responsibility of maintaining peace while appearing effortless requires her to carry the emotional weight of community conflicts without allowing that burden to affect her interactions with the parties involved. She must remain neutral and supportive to all sides, while privately dealing with the stress and disappointment that inevitably accompany exposure to human failings and the limitations of good intentions. Her success in preventing problems has created an interesting paradox. The better she becomes at her protective role, the less visible her contributions appear to those she serves. Villages where she works experience fewer crises, less interpersonal conflict, and more collaborative problem-solving. But these positive outcomes are attributed to the inherent goodness of the community, rather than to her behind the scenes efforts to nurture and protect that goodness. The psychological toll of serving as an emotional lightning rod for community tensions while maintaining her cheerful public persona requires coping mechanisms that she has developed through years of trial and error. She has learned to find release through physical activities like organizing files or rearranging office furniture, channeling her accumulated stress into productive tasks that restore her sense of control and accomplishment. Her private moments of reflection often focus on the philosophical questions raised by her protective role. She wonders whether her interventions actually strengthen community resilience, or whether they might inadvertently prevent residents from developing their own conflict resolution skills. She questions whether her protection of mayors from harsh criticism serves their development as leaders, or shields them from feedback that could improve their effectiveness. Yet, despite these doubts, she continues to serve as guardian and protector because she has witnessed firsthand the devastating effects that unresolved conflicts and unchecked negativity can have on community well-being. Her interventions may not always produce perfect outcomes, but they consistently prevent worse alternatives and create space for healing, growth, and renewed cooperation. The network of trust and mutual support that has developed around her protective presence represents perhaps her greatest achievement, though it is one that she can never claim credit for directly. Villagers under her care develop stronger social bonds, more effective problem-solving mechanisms, and greater resilience in the face of external challenges, because she has created environments where cooperation flourishes and conflicts are resolved constructively. Her influence extends beyond individual disputes into the broader culture of how community members relate to one another. Through her example and gentle guidance, she has helped establish norms of courtesy, patience, and good faith that make collaborative problem-solving possible, even when interests, conflict, and emotions run high. The legacy of her protective work will outlive her tenure in any particular village, as the skills and attitudes she has fostered in others continue to influence community dynamics long after her direct intervention is no longer available. The residents she has helped develop conflict resolution abilities will apply those skills to future disputes, and the collaborative approaches she has modeled will become part of the community's institutional memory and cultural inheritance. In the deepest archives of village records, hidden among documents so old that their edges have yellowed with age and their ink has faded to the color of autumn leaves, there exist references to phenomena that challenge conventional understanding of time, continuity, and the nature of administrative service itself. These cryptic mentions speak of assistants whose dedication transcended normal professional boundaries, individuals whose commitment to community welfare seemed to operate according to principles that existed beyond the usual constraints of mortal existence and linear progression through seasons and years. Isabelle's mysterious ability to maintain connections across different temporal periods first manifested in ways so subtle that even she did not initially recognize their significance. Villagers would occasionally mention receiving assistance with problems that she had no conscious memory of addressing, or express gratitude for solutions to difficulties that seemed to exist outside her normal sphere of responsibility and awareness. These incidents, dismissed initially as simple cases of mistaken identity or confused recollection, gradually accumulated into patterns that suggested something far more profound and inexplicable was occurring. Her role in facilitating mayor transitions reveals perhaps the most compelling evidence of her unusual relationship with the flow of time itself. New mayors arriving to take leadership positions in villages often discovered that preparations for their arrival had been made by someone who seemed to possess impossible knowledge of their preferences, working styles, and long-term goals. Office arrangements reflected personal tastes that had never been communicated to anyone in the village. Project files contained preliminary research on initiatives that existed only in the new mayor's private thoughts and undisclosed plans. When questioned about these remarkably prescient preparations, Isabelle would express puzzlement that matched that of the mayors themselves, claiming no memory of the specific arrangements while acknowledging that they bore all the hallmarks of her characteristic attention to detail and anticipatory planning. This pattern repeated itself across multiple transitions in multiple villages, creating a body of evidence that suggested her influence operated according to mechanisms that defied straightforward explanation. The continuity she provides during periods of leadership change extends beyond simple administrative support into something approaching institutional memory that transcends normal human limitations. She possesses detailed knowledge of policy decisions made by mayors who officially served before her arrival, understanding the reasoning behind choices and the historical context that influenced them in ways that written records alone could never convey. Her insights into past administrative approaches demonstrate a depth of institutional understanding that would typically require decades of direct experience to accumulate. This phenomenon becomes particularly remarkable when considering that many of the policy decisions she demonstrates intimate knowledge of were made during periods when official records indicate she was serving in different villages, entirely, sometimes in locations separated by vast distances that would have made direct observation or participation impossible. Yet her understanding of these decisions includes not only their formal parameters but also the interpersonal dynamics, community reactions, and long-term consequences that shape their implementation and ultimate success or failure. The deeper law implications of her presence across multiple timelines raise questions that touch upon the fundamental nature of service, dedication, and the relationship between individual consciousness and collective institutional memory. Academic researchers studying municipal administration have noted anomalies in historical records that suggest the presence of administrative support systems that operated with consistency and effectiveness across time periods when such coordination should have been logistically impossible, given the communication and transportation technologies available. These researchers have identified what they term temporal administrative clusters, periods of exceptional governmental efficiency and community satisfaction that appear in historical records across different regions and time periods, but share common characteristics that suggest the influence of similar methodologies and patient, philosophical approaches. The administrative techniques employed during these periods demonstrate sophistication and foresight that exceeded the apparent capabilities of the formal leadership structures documented in official records. Her understanding of the cyclical nature of village life and leadership changes reflects wisdom that seems to encompass not merely her direct experience, but also insights drawn from observations spanning periods far longer than any individual career could reasonably contain. She demonstrates intuitive knowledge of how community dynamics evolve over generations, understanding patterns of social development and political change that typically become apparent only through extensive historical study or decades of direct experience. The wisdom she has gained from what appears to be witnessing countless generations of villagers manifests in her ability to predict with remarkable accuracy how specific policy decisions will affect community dynamics over extended time periods. Her recommendations to mayors often prove prescient in ways that become apparent only years after their implementation, suggesting a form of temporal perspective that allows her to perceive long-term consequences that remain invisible to others operating within normal temporal constraints. Her adaptation to changing technologies while maintaining core values demonstrates a flexibility that would be remarkable in any individual, but becomes extraordinary when considered alongside evidence suggesting her involvement in village administration across technological eras that should have been separated by decades or centuries. She displays equal competence with communication systems ranging from simple written correspondence to sophisticated digital networks, adapting her methods to available tools while preserving the essential principles that define her approach to service. This technological adaptability extends beyond mere familiarity with different systems into genuine mastery that suggests deep, prolonged experience with each type of technology. Her understanding of how different communication methods affect interpersonal dynamics and community relationships reflects insights that would typically require extensive trial and error to develop. Yet she demonstrates this understanding across technological paradigms that existed in different historical periods, raising questions about the nature of her experience and the mechanisms through which she acquired such comprehensive knowledge. The philosophical questions raised by her seemingly timeless existence challenge fundamental assumptions about the relationship between individual identity and institutional continuity. If the same consciousness can serve communities across different time periods, what does this suggest about the nature of dedication and the possibility that profound commitment to service might transcend normal limitations of mortality and temporal progression? Her existence seems to blur the boundaries between individual achievement and institutional memory, suggesting that the deepest forms of service might operate according to principles that exist beyond conventional understanding of cause and effect. Her presence across different temporal contexts has created a form of institutional stability that allows communities to maintain continuity of values and administrative excellence, even during periods of significant social and political change. Villages that have benefited from her service demonstrate resilience and adaptive capacity that exceeds what would typically be expected from communities facing the challenges of technological advancement, demographic shifts, and evolving governmental structures. The mystery of how her consciousness maintains coherence across different temporal periods while adapting to changing circumstances raises profound questions about the nature of identity itself. Does the Isabelle who serves in one time period represent the same individual as the one who appears in different historical contexts? Or do these manifestations represent different expressions of the same underlying principle or archetype of dedicated service? The consistency of her character, values, and methods across different temporal contexts suggests a form of essential identity that transcends normal limitations of time and space. Her influence on the development of administrative best practices appears to have shaped governmental approaches across multiple time periods, with innovations and methodologies appearing in historical records that bear her characteristic hallmarks of thorough preparation, inclusive decision-making, and long-term planning. These administrative approaches often appear suddenly in historical records without clear developmental pathways, suggesting the influence of someone with comprehensive understanding of their implementation and consequences. The networks of information and support that develop around her presence demonstrate remarkable consistency across different time periods and geographical locations, suggesting either unprecedented coordination between different administrative systems or the influence of a single organizing consciousness that operates across normal temporal boundaries. These networks display sophisticated understanding of human psychology and social dynamics that would typically require generations of institutional development to achieve. Her role as a bridge between different eras of village development allows communities to benefit from accumulated wisdom and experience that spans far longer periods than any single generation of residents could encompass. Through her presence, lessons learned in one time period can inform decision-making in others, creating a form of temporal cross-pollination that enhances community resilience and adaptive capacity in ways that would otherwise be impossible. The documentation of her service across different time periods presents challenges for conventional historical analysis, as the evidence suggests. Forms of continuity and coordination that exceed the apparent capabilities of the administrative systems officially recorded in historical documents. Researchers attempting to trace the development of particularly effective governmental approaches often encounter gaps in the historical record that correspond to periods when her influence appears to have been most significant. Her ability to maintain essential values and principles while adapting to changing circumstances demonstrates a form of wisdom that transcends normal temporal limitations, suggesting access to perspectives that encompass multiple generations of community development and social evolution. This temporal perspective allows her to distinguish between surface changes that require adaptation and deeper principles that must be preserved to maintain community integrity and institutional effectiveness. The legacy of her cross-temporal service extends beyond individual communities into the broader development of municipal administration as a field of study and practice. Administrative approaches that bear her influence have shaped governmental philosophy and methodology across different historical periods, contributing to the gradual refinement of techniques for balancing individual needs with collective welfare and maintaining democratic participation while ensuring effective governance. Her seemingly timeless dedication to service raises ultimate questions about the nature of commitment itself and the possibility that the deepest forms of devotion might transcend normal limitations of individual existence and temporal progression, suggesting that true service to community welfare might operate according to principles that exist beyond conventional understanding of cause, effect, and the relationship between individual action and collective benefit. Behind the carefully maintained facade of perpetual cheerfulness and unwavering competence lies a psychological landscape far more complex and demanding than most observers could ever imagine. The pressure of maintaining her perfect public image has created internal tensions that Isabelle carries with the same quiet dignity she brings to all her responsibilities, though the weight of these expectations presses upon her consciousness with an intensity that would overwhelm individuals of lesser dedication and resilience. The psychological burden of perfection manifests most acutely in the moments between public interactions, when she must transition from one performance of flawless competence to another, without allowing any trace of her internal struggles to become visible to those who depend upon her strength and reliability. Each greeting must radiate the same warmth. Each response must demonstrate the same level of preparation and insight, and each decision must reflect the same careful consideration of all stakeholder interests, regardless of her own emotional state or the accumulated fatigue that threatens to compromise her effectiveness. This constant performance of perfection has created what psychologists might recognize as a form of emotional dissociation, where her public persona has become so refined and consistent that it sometimes feels separate from her private emotional reality. She has learned to inhabit this professional identity so completely that switching between her public and private selves requires conscious effort and deliberate transition rituals that help her maintain psychological coherence across these different modes of existence. The moments when her carefully constructed mask has slipped, revealing glimpses of the vulnerability and uncertainty that lie beneath her professional competence, have occurred so rarely that they take on profound significance in her personal mythology. These instances of unguarded humanity, usually triggered by unexpected kindness from community members or overwhelming evidence of the positive impact her work has created, provide brief windows into the emotional depths that she normally keeps carefully concealed from public view. During one such moment, triggered by a surprise recognition ceremony that the villagers had organized to celebrate her years of service, Isabelle found herself unable to maintain her usual composed response to praise and gratitude. The carefully prepared speech she had mentally rehearsed gave way to tears of genuine emotion as the accumulated weight of appreciation finally penetrated the protective barriers she had constructed around her emotional life. The villagers' response to this display of authentic feeling, characterized by increased warmth and protective concern rather than disappointment or alarm, taught her valuable lessons about the relationship between vulnerability and connection. The fear of disappointing those who depend upon her has become perhaps the most powerful driving force in her psychological landscape, creating internal pressures that exceed any external expectations placed upon her by mayors, villagers, or administrative supervisors. This fear operates on multiple levels simultaneously, encompassing not only professional concerns about task completion and quality standards, but also deeper anxieties about maintaining the trust and confidence that others have placed in her abilities and character. Her relationship with failure has evolved through years of experience into a complex philosophical framework that allows her to process mistakes and shortcomings without allowing them to undermine her fundamental commitment to excellence. She has learned to distinguish between failures that result from insufficient preparation or effort, which she treats as opportunities for improvement and increased dedication, and failures that result from circumstances beyond her control, or from the inherent limitations of any individual operating within complex systems involving multiple stakeholders with competing interests. The internal dialogue she conducts when confronting her own mistakes reveals the sophisticated psychological mechanisms she has developed for maintaining motivation and self-respect in the face of inevitable human limitations. Rather than engaging in self-criticism that could undermine her effectiveness, she focuses on understanding the factors that contributed to suboptimal outcomes and identifying systemic improvements that could prevent similar problems in the future. This approach allows her to acknowledge her fallibility while channeling the emotional energy of disappointment into constructive problem-solving rather than destructive self-recrimination. The impact of criticism, particularly when it comes from community members whose welfare she has dedicated her life to supporting, creates psychological challenges that test her emotional resilience in ways that external observers rarely recognize or appreciate. She has learned to distinguish between criticism that reflects genuine concerns about her performance or decisions, and criticism that stems from frustration with circumstances beyond her control or from personal conflicts that have little to do with her actual conduct or competence. Her method for processing and responding to criticism demonstrates the emotional maturity and professional wisdom that she has developed through years of public service. Rather than defending herself against unfair accusations or allowing justified criticism to undermine her confidence, She focuses on extracting whatever useful information might be contained within even hostile feedback, while maintaining perspective about the broader context of her work and its overall impact on community welfare. The private moments of doubt that occasionally penetrate her psychological defenses reveal the fundamentally human core that exists beneath her administrative expertise and professional dedication. These moments, usually occurring during the quiet hours of late evening when the demands of daily service have been temporarily satisfied, involve questioning whether her approach to service represents the most effective way to support community welfare, or whether alternative strategies might produce better outcomes with less personal cost. Her internal debates during these periods of uncertainty demonstrate the intellectual honesty and moral seriousness that characterize her approach to all aspects of her work. She questions whether her willingness to absorb unlimited responsibility might actually prevent others from developing their own capacities for leadership and mutual support. She wonders whether her focus on maintaining harmony and preventing conflicts might sometimes delay necessary confrontations with systemic problems that require more direct intervention to resolve effectively. The strength she draws from her sense of purpose during these periods of doubt reveals the deep philosophical foundations that support her commitment to service, even when the personal costs seem to exceed any reasonable expectation of individual sacrifice. Her understanding of her role extends beyond simple job performance into the realm of moral commitment to principles that transcend personal comfort or conventional measures of success and satisfaction. The support systems she has developed for maintaining her mental health operate largely in private, consisting of practices and perspectives that help her process stress and maintain emotional equilibrium without compromising her availability to those who depend upon her assistance. These systems reflect her understanding that sustainable service requires attention to her own psychological well-being, not out of selfishness, but as a practical necessity for maintaining the effectiveness that others rely upon. Her relationship with solitude has evolved into a sophisticated understanding of the difference between loneliness, which threatens psychological health and professional effectiveness, and chosen privacy, which provides necessary space for reflection, restoration, and the processing of accumulated experiences. She has learned to create moments of genuine solitude, even within her demanding schedule, finding ways to experience quiet reflection that restore her emotional resources without requiring extended absences from her responsibilities. The meditation practices she has developed, adapted to fit within the constraints of her professional obligations, demonstrate her ability to find spiritual and emotional sustenance in activities that might appear mundane to outside observers. The morning coffee ritual serves not only as caffeine consumption, but as a moment of centering and intention setting that helps her transition from rest into service with renewed clarity and commitment. The evening review of the day's activities functions as both practical planning and psychological processing that allows her to celebrate successes and learn from difficulties without carrying emotional residue into the following day. Her understanding of the relationship between personal fulfillment and service to others has reached a level of sophistication that challenges conventional assumptions about self-care and professional dedication. She has discovered that the deepest forms of personal satisfaction can emerge from activities that serve others' welfare rather than her own immediate gratification, though this discovery came only after years of learning to distinguish between genuine service and self-sacrifice driven by unhealthy psychological patterns. The boundaries she has learned to maintain between healthy dedication and destructive self-neglect reflect wisdom gained through experience with both extremes and their consequences for her effectiveness and well-being. She has developed internal warning systems that alert her when her commitment to others begins to compromise her ability to provide sustained, high-quality support. Understanding that temporary reduction in availability often serves the long-term interests of those who depend upon her better than unsustainable overcommitment that leads to burnout or decreased competence. Her approach to managing the inevitable conflicts between personal needs and professional responsibilities demonstrates the ethical sophistication she has developed through years of navigating competing demands and limited resources. Rather than viewing these conflicts as moral failures or evidence of insufficient dedication, She has learned to treat them as complex problems, requiring careful analysis and creative solutions that honor both her commitment to others and her responsibility for her own long-term effectiveness and well-being. The wisdom she has gained about perfectionism and its relationship to genuine excellence reveals the psychological growth that her years of service have facilitated. She has learned to distinguish between the pursuit of excellence, which serves both her own development and the welfare of those she assists, and perfectionism, which can become a form of anxiety that actually undermines performance and creates unnecessary stress for herself and others. Her current understanding of success and failure operates according to principles that encompass both immediate outcomes and long-term impact, individual achievement and collective benefit, professional competence and personal growth. This multidimensional approach to evaluation allows her to maintain motivation and self-respect, even during periods when conventional measures of success might suggest reasons for discouragement or self-criticism. The integration of her personal and professional identities has reached a level of coherence that allows her to experience her work not as external obligation, but as authentic expression of her deepest values and commitments. This integration represents the culmination of years of psychological development and self-understanding that have transformed what began as career choice into something approaching spiritual calling, where service to others becomes a path toward her own fullest realization and deepest satisfaction. The psychological resilience she has developed through managing the pressures of perfection while maintaining authentic connection to her own emotional reality represents perhaps her greatest personal achievement, though it is one that remains largely invisible to those who benefit from the stability and competence it makes possible. This resilience allows her to continue growing and learning, even under conditions of sustained pressure, while maintaining the emotional availability and genuine caring that make her service genuinely transformative rather than merely technically proficient. The ripple effects of Isabelle's dedication to excellence extend far beyond the immediate boundaries of any single village or administrative period, creating waves of influence that transform not only the communities she serves directly but also the broader understanding of what public service can accomplish when approached with genuine commitment to collective welfare rather than personal advancement. Her impact on village culture operates through mechanisms so subtle and pervasive that residents often attribute the positive changes in their communities to their own inherent goodness, rather than recognizing the careful cultivation and a patient nurturing that made such flourishing possible. The standards she has established through her own example have fundamentally altered expectations about administrative competence and public service dedication throughout the regions where she has worked. Villages that have experienced her level of support develop what researchers in municipal administration have termed elevated baseline expectations, where residents come to view exceptional service not as extraordinary achievement, but as the normal standard that any competent administrator should be able to maintain. This transformation in community expectations creates a form of positive pressure that elevates the performance of subsequent administrators who inherit her systems and serve communities that have grown accustomed to her level of excellence. New staff members arriving in villages where she has established operational procedures find themselves working within frameworks that naturally encourage thorough preparation, proactive problem-solving, and genuine concern for resident welfare, rather than mere compliance with minimum administrative requirements. The influence she provides to other public servants and administrators operates through both direct mentoring relationships and indirect modeling that demonstrates the possibility of finding deep satisfaction and meaningful purpose in work that others might consider mundane or thankless. Her approach to municipal service has inspired countless individuals to reconsider their own relationships with their professional responsibilities and to explore ways of finding personal fulfillment through dedication to collective welfare rather than purely individual advancement. The inspiration she offers extends beyond specific techniques or methodologies into the realm of philosophical transformation, where her example demonstrates that excellence in public service emerges not from superior natural abilities or exceptional circumstances, but from consistent application of principles that any dedicated individual can learn and apply. Her influence has helped dispel the myth that outstanding public service requires extraordinary personal sacrifice or the abandonment of individual fulfillment in favor of duty and obligation. Her role in training and mentoring new staff members reveals perhaps the most direct mechanism through which her influence shapes future generations of public servants. Rather than simply teaching procedural knowledge or technical skills, she focuses on helping newcomers develop the internal frameworks of purpose and meaning that sustain long-term dedication to service excellence even under challenging circumstances. The training programs she has developed emphasize the connection between individual administrative tasks and their ultimate impact on community welfare, helping new staff members understand how seemingly routine activities like filing reports or scheduling meetings contribute to the larger project of creating environments where human beings can flourish together. This approach to training produces administrators who find genuine satisfaction in their work, rather than viewing it as mere employment or stepping stones to more prestigious positions. Her mentoring relationships demonstrate her understanding that the most valuable knowledge she can transmit involves not specific techniques but the philosophical foundations that make those techniques expressions of deeper values rather than mere mechanical procedures. She teaches newcomers to approach their work with what she calls sacred attention, treating each task as an opportunity to contribute to something larger than individual achievement or personal advancement. The lasting changes she has implemented in village management practices represent innovations that continue to benefit communities long after her direct involvement has ended. Her systems for anticipating and addressing resident needs before they develop into formal complaints have become standard practice in many locations, reducing the overall burden on official complaint resolution mechanisms while improving resident satisfaction with municipal services. The communication protocols she has established create ongoing channels for information sharing and collaborative decision-making that strengthen the connections between residents and their government, while preserving appropriate boundaries and professional standards. These systems demonstrate her understanding that effective governance requires not only competent administration, but also genuine engagement with the communities being served. Her innovations in crisis response and emergency preparedness have provided templates that other administrators have adapted to their own local circumstances, creating networks of shared knowledge and best practices that strengthen community resilience across wide geographical areas. The emergency response protocols she developed during various crisis situations have been studied and implemented by municipal administrators, facing similar challenges, multiplying the impact of her problem-solving innovations far beyond their original contexts. The quiet ways her dedication has improved countless lives operate through mechanisms that often remain invisible even to those who benefit from them. Her influence on community culture creates environments where kindness and mutual support become normalized rather than exceptional, where residents develop habits of consideration and cooperation that improve quality of life in ways that cannot be easily measured or quantified. The long-term impact of her work manifests in the development of social capital within communities, strengthening the networks of trust and reciprocity that enable collective problem-solving and mutual aid during difficult periods. Villages that have benefited from her service demonstrate greater resilience during economic downturns, natural disasters, and other challenges because they have developed the social cohesion and collaborative capacity necessary for effective community response. Her philosophy on leadership through service rather than authority has challenged traditional assumptions about power and influence in municipal governance, demonstrating that the most effective leadership often involves creating conditions where others can succeed rather than commanding attention or claiming credit for achievements. This approach to leadership has influenced how mayors and other officials understand their roles and responsibilities, encouraging more collaborative and inclusive approaches to decision-making and policy implementation. The model of servant leadership that she exemplifies emphasizes the importance of understanding governance as stewardship rather than dominance, where those in positions of authority serve as caretakers of community welfare rather than wielders of power over others. This philosophical shift has contributed to more democratic and participatory approaches to municipal governance that engage residents as partners in community development rather than passive recipients of services. The ripple effects of her compassionate approach to governance extend into the personal relationships and family dynamics of community members. As residents who experience consistent respect and consideration in their interactions with municipal services develop enhanced capacity for treating others with similar consideration and care. The modeling she provides through her professional conduct influences how community members relate to each other in contexts far removed from official administrative interactions. Her influence on conflict resolution and community mediation has established norms of good faith negotiation and collaborative problem solving that reduce the overall level of interpersonal tension and dispute within communities. Residents who observe her approach to handling disagreements and addressing complaints learn techniques for managing their own conflicts more constructively, creating cascading effects that improve community harmony across multiple generations of residents. The educational impact of her work extends beyond formal training programs into the realm of civic education, as community members who interact with her administrative systems develop enhanced understanding of how local government functions and how individual participation contributes to collective welfare. This increased civic knowledge and engagement strengthens democratic participation and creates more informed and effective advocacy for community needs and priorities. The economic benefits of her administrative excellence manifest in increased efficiency and reduced costs for municipal services, creating fiscal stability that allows communities to invest in infrastructure improvements, cultural programs, and other enhancements that improve quality of life for all residents. Her careful resource management and strategic planning create multiplier effects that extend the impact of limited public funds while ensuring that essential services remain reliably available. The cultural legacy of her service includes the establishment of traditions and celebrations that strengthen community bonds and create shared experiences that unite residents across demographic and ideological differences. The festivals and ceremonies she has organized become part of community identity and institutional memory, providing ongoing sources of connection and pride that enhance social cohesion and collective resilience. Her influence on environmental stewardship and sustainability practices has helped communities develop more responsible approaches to resource use and waste management, creating long-term benefits that extend far beyond the immediate timeframe of her direct service. The environmental education and conservation programs she has supported create lasting changes in community behavior that contribute to ecological health and sustainability for future generations. The networks of mutual support and community care that develop around her service create informal safety nets that provide assistance and companionship for vulnerable community members, particularly elderly residents, families facing economic challenges, and individuals dealing with health crises or other personal difficulties. These networks continue to function and evolve long after her direct involvement has ended, creating enduring sources of community resilience and compassion. The documentation and systematization of her approaches to common administrative challenges have created resources that benefit administrators and communities far beyond her direct sphere of influence, as her methods and insights become part of the broader knowledge base available to those seeking to improve municipal governance and community development. Her contributions to the field of public administration extend the reach of her influence across geographical and temporal boundaries, benefiting communities she has never directly served. The ultimate measure of her legacy lies not in formal recognition or institutional monuments, but in the countless small improvements in daily life that her service has made possible, the conflicts prevented, the problems solved before they became crises, and the environments of trust and cooperation that enable human communities to flourish together in ways that honor both individual dignity and collective welfare. In the depths of administrative philosophy, where questions of ambition and fulfillment intersect with the practical realities of municipal service, Isabelle has reached a level of self-understanding that transforms what others might perceive as limitation into a source of profound contentment and purposeful existence. Her acceptance of her role as permanent supporter rather than leader represents not resignation or defeat, but the culmination of a journey toward wisdom that few individuals ever achieve, regardless of their position in organizational hierarchies or their accumulation of conventional markers of success. The nobility she has discovered in choosing service over personal ambition reflects a philosophical sophistication that challenges contemporary assumptions about career advancement and individual achievement. Rather than viewing her position as a stepping stone toward more prestigious roles or greater recognition, she has learned to find deep satisfaction in the mastery of her current responsibilities and the continuous refinement of her ability to support others' success. This perspective requires a form of ego transcendence that allows her to measure her own worth, not by external validation or comparative status, but by the quality and impact of her contributions to collective welfare. Her understanding of true leadership has evolved through years of observation and experience into recognition that the most effective influence often operates through invisible channels, where success is measured not by command and control, but by the creation of conditions that allow others to flourish according to their own capabilities and aspirations. She has learned that sustainable organizational excellence emerges from systems and cultures rather than individual heroics, and that her role in creating and maintaining those systems represents a form of leadership that transcends conventional hierarchical structures. The contentment she finds in recognition through others' success demonstrates her mastery of what philosophers might recognize as a form of enlightened self-interest, where personal fulfillment emerges from alignment with purposes larger than individual advancement or gratification. When mayors receive praise for well-organized events or efficiently managed crises, she experiences genuine satisfaction that equals or exceeds what she might feel from direct recognition of her own contributions. This response reflects not self-denial, but rather an expanded understanding of identity that encompasses collective achievement as personal fulfillment. Her ability to find joy in others' accomplishments has become so natural and automatic that she no longer experiences the ego conflicts that might arise when credit for her work is attributed to others. The festivals that run seamlessly because of her months of preparation, the crises resolved smoothly due to her anticipatory planning, the community harmony that results from her diplomatic interventions, all become sources of deep satisfaction, regardless of whether her role in their success is publicly acknowledged or privately recognized. The deeper meaning she discovers in facilitating others' dreams operates on multiple philosophical levels simultaneously, encompassing both practical satisfaction in problem-solving effectiveness and spiritual fulfillment derived from participation in something approaching divine creation. When she helps a mayor implement a vision for community improvement or assists residents in achieving their goals for neighborhood development, she experiences herself as participating in the fundamental creative forces that shape human civilization and enable communities to evolve toward greater harmony and mutual flourishing. This understanding of her role as facilitator, rather than initiator, has freed her from the anxiety and competition that often characterize professional relationships in hierarchical organizations. Rather than needing to generate original ideas or claim ownership of innovations, she can focus her considerable talents on the equally important and more personally suitable work of implementation, refinement, and optimization of approaches developed through collaborative processes that honor multiple perspectives and stakeholder interests. Her recognition that true leadership sometimes requires remaining invisible represents wisdom that challenges popular conceptions of influence and effectiveness in organizational contexts. She has learned that the most profound changes often occur through gradual shifts in culture and expectations rather than dramatic interventions or revolutionary reforms, and that her contributions to these gradual transformations may be more significant than more visible forms of leadership that receive greater attention and acclaim. The peace she has found in her chosen path reflects a form of spiritual maturity that allows her to experience fulfillment through alignment with purpose, rather than through acquisition of status or accumulation of achievements that serve primarily as external validation. Her work has become a form of meditation or prayer, where each task represents an opportunity to express her deepest values and contribute to the manifestation of ideals that transcend personal ambition or individual recognition. The wisdom that emerges from finding fulfillment in duty rather than glory has taught her to distinguish between different forms of satisfaction and to recognize that the deepest pleasures often come from activities that serve purposes beyond immediate gratification or personal advancement. The quiet satisfaction of systems functioning smoothly, communities operating harmoniously, and individuals achieving their goals with appropriate support provides forms of contentment that prove more sustainable and meaningful than the temporary highs associated with public recognition or competitive achievement. Her philosophical evolution towards servant leadership has been facilitated by her observation of leaders who sought power for its own sake and the inevitable disappointment and corruption that accompanied such pursuits. She has witnessed how the desire for control and recognition can undermine the very purposes that initially motivated individuals to seek leadership positions, creating cycles of ambition and disillusionment that serve neither individual fulfillment nor collective welfare. In contrast, her approach to influence through service has provided consistent sources of meaning and satisfaction that strengthen rather than diminish over time. The relationships she builds through supportive assistance rather than hierarchical authority create bonds of trust and mutual respect that enrich her personal experience while enhancing her effectiveness in facilitating positive outcomes for others. The acceptance of her role as eternal assistant has required her to develop sophisticated understanding of the relationship between individual identity and collective purpose, learning to find personal meaning in contributions that serve the larger organizational mission rather than advancing her own position within institutional hierarchies. This acceptance represents not passive resignation but active choice to align her considerable talents with roles and responsibilities that maximize her ability to contribute to outcomes she values most deeply. Her understanding that the most important work often occurs behind the scenes has been validated repeatedly through her observations of organizational dynamics and community development processes. She has learned that the visible achievements that receive public attention depend upon invisible support systems and preparatory work that enable their successful implementation, and that her contributions to these foundational elements represent essential components of any sustainable success. The fulfillment she derives from her chosen role demonstrates that personal satisfaction and professional advancement need not be synonymous, that individuals can find deep meaning and continuous growth through dedication to excellence in whatever position allows them to make their most effective contributions to collective welfare. Her example challenges contemporary assumptions about career success and personal fulfillment by demonstrating alternative pathways to meaningful professional life. Her commitment to supporting rather than supplanting the leadership of others reflects understanding that sustainable organizational health requires distribution of responsibilities according to individual strengths and inclinations rather than rigid hierarchical assumptions about the relationship between position and worth. She has learned to value her own contributions, not by comparing them to those of others, but by evaluating their effectiveness in serving purposes she considers genuinely important and meaningful. The joy she experiences in her work emerges from alignment between her personal values and professional activities, creating integration between different aspects of her existence that eliminates the conflicts and tensions that often characterize relationships between individual fulfillment and organizational responsibility. Her work becomes expression of her authentic self, rather than performance of externally imposed roles, creating conditions for sustainable satisfaction and continuous growth. Her perspective on leadership and service has evolved into recognition that the most effective organizational cultures emerge when individuals focus on contributing their best efforts to collective purposes, rather than competing for position or recognition within hierarchical structures. Her example demonstrates that excellence in supportive roles can be just as demanding and fulfilling as excellence in leadership positions, requiring similar levels of skill, dedication, and wisdom, while serving different but equally essential functions within organizational ecosystems. The wisdom she has gained about the relationship between individual achievement and collective welfare has taught her to evaluate her own success according to criteria that encompass both personal growth and contribution to purposes beyond individual advancement, creating frameworks for self-assessment that support sustainable motivation and continuous improvement while maintaining perspective about the relative importance of different forms of accomplishment. Her acceptance of her role as permanent assistant represents the culmination of a spiritual and philosophical journey toward understanding that transcends conventional assumptions about ambition and fulfillment, demonstrating that the deepest forms of satisfaction emerge from alignment with purpose rather than accumulation of position or recognition, and that true success must be measured by contribution to values that extend beyond individual gratification or comparative achievement. As we reach the end of our exploration into Isabelle's hidden depths, we find ourselves not at a conclusion, but at a deeper understanding of what it means to serve with genuine love and dedication. Her story continues each day in countless villages, in every cheerful greeting and every task completed with care. She remains the eternal guardian of community spirit, the keeper of traditions, and the gentle force that holds the fabric of village life together. The continuing nature of her story reflects the timeless quality of the values she embodies and the enduring need for individuals willing to dedicate their lives to the welfare of others. In a world where cynicism and self-interest often dominate public discourse, she stands as living proof that genuine service remains possible, that excellence in public administration can coexist with compassion and humility, and that the most profound contributions to human welfare often emerge from those who seek no recognition beyond the satisfaction of work well done. Her legacy extends beyond any particular village or administrative period into the realm of inspiration and possibility, demonstrating that ordinary individuals can achieve extraordinary impact through consistent application of principles that honor both individual dignity and collective welfare. The communities she has touched carry forward the lessons embedded in her example, creating ripple effects that will influence generations of residents who may never know her name, but will benefit from the culture of mutual care and civic excellence she helped to establish. The wisdom she has gained through years of dedicated service offers guidance for anyone seeking to find meaning and purpose in work that serves others, rather than advancing personal ambition or accumulating individual recognition. Her journey demonstrates that fulfillment emerges not from position or status, but from alignment with values that transcend immediate gratification and contribute to purposes larger than individual success as conventionally measured. As you drift towards sleep, let yourself imagine Isabelle in her quiet moments after the day's work is done, perhaps looking out her office window at the peaceful village she helps to nurture, finding satisfaction not in acclaim, but in the simple knowledge that tomorrow she'll have another opportunity to make life a little better for those around her. Picture her reviewing the day's accomplishments and challenges with the same careful attention she brings to all her responsibilities, identifying lessons that will inform future decisions and opportunities for continued improvement in service to community welfare. In these private moments of reflection, she embodies the deepest truths about the relationship between individual purpose and collective flourishing, demonstrating that the most meaningful lives often unfold in quiet dedication to daily tasks that serve purposes beyond personal advancement or recognition. Her contentment emerges not from external validation but from internal alignment with values that honor both her own capabilities and the needs of those whose lives she touches through her work. Rest now in the knowledge that somewhere, in the gentle world of Animal Crossing, Isabelle continues her watch, ensuring that kindness and community endure through her patient attention to the countless small details that make civilized life possible. The village sleeps peacefully tonight, secure in the knowledge that someone remains vigilant on their behalf, ready to address whatever challenges tomorrow might bring with the same cheerful competence and genuine care that have defined her approach to service throughout her remarkable career. The continuing story of her dedication serves as reminder that the most important work in human civilization often occurs in quiet offices and municipal buildings, carried out by individuals whose names may never appear in history books, but whose contributions create the stable foundations upon which all other achievements depend. Her example demonstrates that heroism takes many forms, that greatness can be measured by consistency as well as by dramatic achievement, and that the deepest satisfaction available to human beings may come from knowing that their lives have made existence better for others. And so her watch continues, as it has for countless seasons and will for countless more, a testament to the enduring power of service freely chosen and lovingly maintained, proof that in a world often dominated by competition and self-interest, there remain souls dedicated to the ancient truth that we find our truest selves not in what we take, but in what we give, not in what we achieve for ourselves, but in what we make possible for others, not in the recognition we receive, but in the quiet knowledge that we have used our brief time in this world to leave it a little brighter than we found it. The village sleeps peacefully tonight, and so can you.